It's Monday, a fresh start to the week and a chance for you to set yourself up for efficiency and productivity. You have your coffee in the morning, get some emails done, get some studying done, even get a workout in. You're feeling good, great even. Then 2 p.m. hits. You get a food coma, are getting distracted watching TikToks, and holy shit, already 6 p.m. You're not alone if you've had a day like this or a consecutive group of days like this. It just happens to everybody. Over time, I've gotten a lot better at minimizing these occurrences, and I've come up with really good ways in order to really maximize my productivity without crashing throughout the day. My days are typically pretty busy. As a medical student, I spend a lot of time watching lectures, doing flashcards, practicing questions, attending labs, and preparing for exams. I've also been pretty consistent with my YouTube channel, scripting, filming, and editing videos every week. I'm far from where I want to be, but I feel like I'm making positive strides every video. On top of that, I consistently lift weights multiple times a week, make time to stretch and meditate, and also just finished my very first marathon. And I'm not saying this to tell you guys, hey, look at me, I'm really great. It's more like I have a lot on my plate and I've gotten pretty good at managing all these different activities. And before getting into the meat of the video and what it's all about, I want to go ahead and say this first. You are not your productivity. Your productivity levels don't define you, whether that's professionally, financially, economically, whatever, right? You are more than just being productive. With that being said, though, we also can't ignore the fact that our goals and our aspirations require hard work and us being productive, right? It's also important to point out that rest is productive. The whole hustle mentality wave really took a hold of a lot of people and messed up what we consider productive and what we consider unproductive. Mental rest, as well as physical rest, is going to be incredibly important when it comes to maximizing your productivity and, more importantly, your happiness. Everyone's at a different point of their self-development journey, but one phase that I'm encouraging you to avoid is what we'll call the hustle phase. In this phase, you're firing from all cylinders and will inevitably burn yourself out and into the ground. It doesn't matter if you're a graduate student, prospective entrepreneur, or whatever. You are not an exception to this rule. Now, before talking about how we can get around this and maximize a sustained level of performance and productivity, I need you guys to understand the concept of stress. Stress is just any stimulus that induces change. That's its most simple and basic definition. Now, this change can be a positive thing or a negative thing. You can't get better without stress because you need it to induce some kind of challenge that you can grow from and become better from. At the same time, though, too much stress can be a negative thing where it messes up with our mental health, even our physical health, and it just impedes us from even taking on different challenges, and it just impedes on us actually performing the way we want to. The stress curve depicts this idea in a very digestible way, so let's take a look at it. Again, too little stress and you're going to find yourself in the zone where you feel bored, unmotivated, and unstimulated. Too much stress and your brain and body starts to shut down and you're unable to perform your daily tasks at an optimal level. We want to be in the green, the optimal zone, where there's enough stress to push us to grow and keep us interested, but not so much where we shut down. Now keep that in the back of your mind because that's going to be the basis for a lot of what we're going to talk about. The first tip I have for staying productive all day is going to be making your health your number one priority all the time. Let me break it down for you using myself as an example. On one hand, I have my academic and professional goal of doing well in medical school and becoming a physician. Then I have this, which is the professional goal of growing on YouTube and maybe creating a platform for myself. Then I have my fitness, physique, and powerlifting goals. What are some things that I can focus on in order to maximize my performance in all of these things? Getting enough sleep, maintaining an optimal diet, and taking care of my health overall. And it's almost common knowledge at this point that in order to keep your mind at an optimal level and sharp throughout the day, in order to recover from your workouts, in order to really maximize your academic or professional performance, you need to really optimize your sleep and your diet. It doesn't matter how hectic your schedule is, your sleep is not optional. Missing out on sleep isn't going to get you where you want, no matter how many times you try to convince yourself or how many times you tell yourself it's just this once. Obviously, there's going to be exceptions to this rule. For example, when I'm on rotations or in residency, if I have to do an overnight shift, a 36-hour shift or something, I'm gonna have to just suck it up and eventually sacrifice my sleep, and then I will catch up later on. In that regard, I don't really have control over my schedule. But where I do have control over my schedule, though, it's really on me to optimize my sleep and prioritize my sleep. And just on a personal note, this is why I'm not really that interested in those specialties that will make me, sacrifice sacrifice my own health in order to perform in residency or whatever. It's just, for me, not worth it, not really aligning with my values. And once you start getting an adequate amount of sleep, once you start eating minimally processed foods and really taking care of your diet, working out, and just taking care of your body overall, you're gonna have more energy throughout the day. You're gonna be more sharp throughout the day. And you can take pride in the fact of knowing that you actually prioritize yourself over everything else, and that's a good feeling. Building on that, the next step to take in order to be productive all day is to balance your stressors and your stress relievers. Going back to that stress curve, right? If you start doing too many productive activities where you're starting to feel more and more worn out and stressed, it's gonna make you get into that red zone where we don't want to be, right? And if you just take too much time, you're procrastinating, you're on TikTok, you're watching movies, you're gonna be too much in that green zone where you're not actually being productive. The goal is to balance out those fun activities with the activities that you need to do in order to accomplish your goals. For me, after a morning of lectures and flashcards, I need a mental break. So I schedule my gym time to be in the middle of the day because it's a stress reliever for me. And like we just talked about, going to the gym is productive. And then afterwards, I'm back in the optimal zone and ready to finish my lectures, do practice problems, or whatever it is I need to do. Obviously, I have a little bit more flexibility compared to those that are working full time because I'm a student and I have some control over my schedule, but the principle still remains. If you work from home, maybe you can take a 10-minute break to go on a walk when you're feeling strained. If you're at an office, perhaps just close your eyes and do a quick meditation. The point is this: productivity is a long-term game. Don't focus on getting so much done in one sitting, because sometimes the best way to get more done is to take a step back before pushing forward. One thing that I've been more conscious of and that has been giving me a great return on my effort is creating an optimal environment for whatever work I'm doing. If you're studying at your desk, keep it decluttered and tidy. This will promote a culture of discipline and organization while you're working. If you're unable to study at home because of the noise, try a library or a coffee shop. Minimize distractions, minimize clutter, and set yourself up for success. And this is one of those things that I thought really didn't affect me much, but after I started keeping things really tidy, I realized that it actually did matter. It matters, guys. Pick up the hoodie, clear off your desk, take up all the papers that can be thrown away that you got in the mail, toss them out, keep it tidy, and you're gonna realize that those little things have been weighing you down all this time. Besides just keeping your workplace clean, actually treat it like a place where work gets done. I used to have this terrible habit of laying around while I do work like this, or this, or this. If you're watching my video in any of these positions, this is your sign to get up and sit straight and sit normally. Now, in a previous video, I talked about the trap of multitasking and how it affects our actual productivity. If you haven't seen those videos, the quick synopsis is that multitasking is foolish and actually cuts into your productivity. It's much better to tackle one task at a time with your full attention. Well, actually, I wanted to backtrack a little bit on that. When I talked about how multitasking was bad, I meant trying to do something really fun with something that is supposed to be focused and productive. You shouldn't study and watch a basketball game. You shouldn't write a YouTube script while watching anime. It just doesn't really work. One way I found multitasking useful and effective is when pairing something productive with something that's mindless. I've been incorporating longer cardio sessions into my workout program, and I found that I'm actually able to work on Anki flashcards while I do it. I'm usually just walking on the treadmill at a really high incline at a pretty low speed, and I realized that if I just connected my Anki flashcard, I can just go through a bunch of flashcards on my phone while walking, and cardio takes no brain power most of the time, so it's something that kind of takes what would otherwise be dead time and make it productive. Plus, walking on the treadmill is productive, and obviously doing flashcards is productive. It's a win-win. It's just that walking on the treadmill is usually mindless. I've also been listening to audiobooks and podcasts on my commutes. My commutes are obviously going to be 20, 30, and 40 minutes of just wasted time, and listening to those books or podcasts lets me maximize that time. Now, the disclaimer here, guys, is you don't have to be productive all the time, right? If reading a book is something that really recharges your batteries and makes you feel good again, don't bother mixing that up with driving or doing cardio or whatever, right? Do it in a way that you're actually going to get recharged from it. Same thing with doing, cardio. If cardio is your safe place where you're able to just disconnect from work, don't taint that by doing flashcards while you're on the treadmill, right? Just find a way and find a balance that makes sense for you. Now, we talked about why being productive and maximizing your productivity is really good for pretty much everybody, right? And we talked about some ways we can be productive all day without crashing and burning. But just as important that those two things were, I want to talk about some common pitfalls that people fall into when they're trying to become more productive. The first thing that I wanted to talk about is being so hyper-focused on having a productive day that you aren't present in what you're doing and who you're spending your time time with. If you blocked out 11 a.m. to noon for doing flashcards, focus on those flashcards and not on the next task. If you block out 3 hours in the evening to eat dinner with your family or friends, spend those 3 hours being present. Be engaged with them. Don't let the next task or day be a dark cloud hanging over your head. When you allow this to happen, you're not actually being productive with those flashcards. You're not actually recharging by hanging out with your friends. This is going to cause you to be more stressed and will contribute to your burnout. And building on top of that, something that I see so many people mess up in, and I messed up in a lot as well, is not taking the time that I allocated to rest to actually rest. Don't feel guilty about taking rest. Look, if you schedule 2 hours in the evening to just unwind and relax, you can watch anime. You can watch a comedy movie or an action movie instead of an informative documentary. You can play your video games or even just do nothing instead of reading. If you schedule reading time for the purpose of reading, that's one thing. But if the objective is rest, you need to learn how to actually utilize that time to recharge guilt-free. It's okay. You're human and not a productivity machine. When you actually let yourself truly unwind and truly relax, you'll feel recharged, and when it is time to work again, you're actually going to be ready to work. Again, the goal here is long-term sustainable productivity, right? Productivity is actually going to make you feel good, not burnt out, and recharged throughout the day. That way, when it's time to work, you can work, and that way, when it's time to have fun with your loved ones, you can have fun with your loved ones. The more you're able to incorporate healthy systems in your routine, the more productive you're going to be in the long run. This is going to not only make you more productive, but healthier and happier. And doesn't that make it worth it? If you made it this far in the video, thank you guys so much for your support. I greatly appreciate it. Now, I'd love to hear from you guys. What are some tips and tricks that you guys use in order to really maximize your productivity without burning out? I'd love to hear about it. So go ahead and leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys on the next one.